Hello and welcome to the Phoenix 5 Info Show. I'm your host, Lieutenant Vince Lewis of the Phoenix Police Public Affairs Bureau, coming to you once again from Phoenix Police Headquarters in beautiful downtown Phoenix. Welcome back to the show, co-host Rob Scherer.
Thank you, boss.
PIO Sgt. Extraordinary.
Extraordinaire is extreme, but yeah.
Here because I told you to be.
That also.
Appreciate your compliance.
Thank you.
Want to welcome to the show a friend of ours. You guys go back. You work together. This is Lieutenant Chad Ryan from the Traffic Bureau, but you guys work together, right?
Yeah, and although he has two first names, he's trustworthy. Didn't start out well because of that, but yeah, twice we've been partners. Truly one of the better men on this department. Look up to him in many ways. So
that's why we have you.
I'll have to pay him for that later.
On another note, recently we heard some good news about the Traffic Bureau and the success that you guys are having with the traffic safety program, traffic enforcement, and you've got some stats that you want to share. But first of all, the way that you guys set up your programs and go through them when you're targeting a particular neighborhood, you're not targeting neighborhoods. What you're doing is you're reacting to complaints. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, set it up. Tell us, walk us through the new traffic enforcement program model.
Sure. So we get complaints, and we have a complaint line, 602-534-SPEED. I want to put that out there. And we'll take these complaints from there. We'll get complaints through precincts, through CAOs or community action officers saying, hey, we're having trouble, or we're having a lot of community complaints in this area. Can you look at it? Sometimes we'll put a radar trailer out in a smaller area to see if it's worth bringing the whole unit.
And that's that number thing that when you're driving down, it tells you how fast you're going?
Yes, sir. So we'll put a trailer out. It tells you how fast you're going.
Does it have the sneaky red and blue lights that scare everybody?
No, they don't.
I haven't seen those.
Not on ours.
Does it take your picture?
No, it does not. But it does track all the cars. And so what we're seeing, we'll see thousands or hundreds of thousands of cars go through, depending on the area that we put it in. And we'll track that data to see if we need to go out there and address that with motors. One thing that we see also is that people like to try to get a high speed on there. And,
don't do that. Please don't do that.
It's like playing a game. Yeah, we don't want you to do that. We don't want you to get hurt. That's not what they're out there for. They're there to help us show you what's going on and also gather some data so we can deploy our resources more effectively. So once we find an area that works, via complaints or the radar trailers, then we'll put the motors out there. And it's incredible to see what happens when you put a lot of motors in a small area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'd imagine some of the complainers also get caught up in that too, right? The people who are calling in the complaints sometimes may get caught up in that tuna net.
Yeah. Yeah, so all these steps you're talking about, Chad, they're all deterrents. In theory, you're going a little bit fast, something's blinking at you telling you, hey, it's almost a reminder to a degree to some of us that we get in our head listening to good music or a podcast or this podcast for that matter. Might lose a little bit, get a little heavy-footed, and you're going a little fast. All of these are reminders and deterrents. What's the goal of these whole programs? What's the goal of the motor unit as a whole?
Well, the goal of the motor unit is to promote road safety and reduce collisions. And so the main focus for those programs is speed, right? We want to slow people down. That way they have more reaction time. So if a car's stopping in front of them, somebody comes out on the street, there's more reaction time so they can slow down and avoid that collision, avoid that accident. And so we really want to focus on making sure people are paying attention and slowing down so that we can make our roads safer. So that's the goal of those programs.
So we get asked by media in the Public Affairs Bureau. Our job is media relations. We get asked by the media a lot about cause of collisions, just about every serious collisions that's out there. I mean, they ask us pretty much two questions. Was speed a factor, and are you guys looking into impairment? Is that pretty common?
Yes. Well, what's interesting about that question, it's kind of loaded, right? Speed is always a factor because if you're going 0 miles an hour, then you're not going to hit anything.
Right.
So there's always a speed, so speed is a factor. And then, yes, we do look into whether or not there's impairment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the uniqueness is, I think when we're driving, and even people like us that understand this is a big thing we're sitting in and pressing go, it takes a long time for that to stop. But even it's surprising even to some of us when you realize, man, to get this thing that's enormous, relatively, you're going 25 miles an hour. To get that thing to stop is a pretty long distance. And I think, like you said, lowering that speed, eliminating those collisions, eliminating those times where a collision turns into an injury or anything like that, you're doing a lot with a lot less too, like the rest of the department. Speak about a little bit of that. I mean, back in our day, in the heyday, there was motors everywhere. You know what I mean? They're scary every time you see them.
My dad was a motor.
Yeah, there's
So,
always
my first dad. So I've got a soft spot for these guys.
Yeah, talk about that theory of trying to do more with less, if you will, and how you're really going through your unit to make that a reality.
Sure. So one of the ways is the programs that we talked about. One, we're putting radar trailers out ahead of time to see if there's an actual need for us to be there, and or capturing data so we know, hey, did this help while we were out there slowing people down? And I'll share some of that here in just a minute. But we try to be more effective in those ways of focusing our efforts on specific areas. That's why we also look at the complaints. Sometimes we'll put a trailer out to verify or validate a complaint. It doesn't mean that we're immediately going to send somebody out there to sit there and run radar and try to slow people down. And so in the heyday, there was between 150 to 200 motors right on the road, and we have about 30 riding motors right now. And so how we deploy them, we have to be very, very specific, very precise, and stay very focused on the mission. So the biggest part for us is speed enforcement and the traffic enforcement part, because we have so few people. We want to focus on that. What that's done over the last couple of years, they've done a great job. I'm coattailing off of the previous folks that were here. They've reduced accidents somewhere between 15 and 20% in general for the department just by focusing on speed alone. A typical, maybe old school, your dad previously would do accidents and speed or those kinds of things. They've taken it down to just traffic enforcement so they could be razor focused on that, and they've reduced speed enough to reduce accidents by a significant amount. So
that's incredible. So the program, correct me if I'm wrong, I know that there's been a change in the way that the deployment model works, but you'd hit an area with a trailer, and then if it warranted, you'd send some actual bodies on bikes. So just officers would be out there doing the traffic enforcement. You put the trailer back to see how things have changed, and that's how you measure success?
That's how we were measuring success, but we've also seen when we're not there, the speeds go right back up, right? And so this, in January, was the first time we left the trailers out while we were there to see, did it even have cause and effect while we were there? And that's where we saw that significant number. I told you, like 15 to 20% of the actual people over the speed limit were down just by us being out there, and that's pretty significant. The top speeds were down, the average speed was down, and so I'm really proud of the work that our guys and gals did to make that happen, because we got a couple of commendations or people from the community that sent in thank yous to the motor unit or traffic unit for being able to do that.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Let's talk about the people on the bikes, because I'm not sure if you know, but there might be a reputation that
they're a unique bunch.
They're unique.
You guys.
Let's
I mean,
talk
they're out
about
in all
that.
weather.
Yeah.
100% of the sun soaked right into that helmet.
Well, it didn't take long for me to realize that they're unique, but also what I found out is that they're actually very elite, right? Getting through motor school is probably the hardest thing that I've ever done, and the hardest thing a lot of those guys have ever done to start with. And that's just step one, right? To get there, you test, you go through motor school, you pass that, then you can get on the list. And so they're an elite bunch of folks, being able to put that bike in positions you never think a bike could be in. That's number one. Number two, to be out there, right, in all the elements. Obviously here we have a long summer, or extended summer, if you will, and yes, it can melt them right there. And so they have to rehab a lot during the summer. Out in the winter months, they can go the whole time, less rehab. But definitely in the summertime, there's a rotation of, hey, you can be out for about an hour, maybe 2 hours. Then you got to go cool off, because something that I didn't even know before this was the bike heats up and the computer heats up enough where the computer stops working because it's just too hot. And that's, when the computer and the person are both too hot, we need to cool those things off so we don't hurt them.
Yeah, great. So we're in the springtime right now in the Phoenix area. We just had a major event on the east side, drew a lot of people. It's a worldwide event. Wasn't Super Bowl this year, but we're talking about the Waste Management Open out in our neighborhood, neighbors to the east in Scottsdale. With events like that, we got holidays coming up and going into the summer, there's DUI task forces that are put together to address driving impairment. Talk a little bit about the program and some of the successes that you had this weekend.
The first thing I want to talk about is how we did some education and prevention, which was fun for the guys because they get to go out, they're over by the open, and then folks can come up and check their PBT or portable breath test. They can see, how much alcohol is in
Their blood
system.
alcohol content?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any surprises? Were they surprised? Like, really?
There were some surprises,
Huh,
which is a great story. There were people that said, "Oh, well, I was going to drive, but this person is lower, so they should probably drive." Right. And so
there's too many options out there to too many alternatives to driving drunk.
Yes, absolutely. We found there's still a lot of drivers that come and go through the different companies that do that. But we wanted to educate while we were there, and that was successful. I think we had over 400 people go through that just in ours, and other agencies had them going along the same lines there, but I think they liked our guys the best.
Yeah. Seems reasonable. Listen, you've made me uncomfortable being around you once or twice in our career, okay? You have a real problem saying no when we were really busy. But there are 2 cameras pointing at me right now. Explain all these cool things you got on you. Seems a bit much. And anything else, like those bikes house a ton of stuff. Go through some of that stuff that you guys have on those bikes and why there has to be 2 cameras, sir.
So you have a camera, you have a chest-mounted camera, the body-worn camera, and then you've got something on your shoulder on your lapel.
Right.
Yes. So our typical standard body-worn camera is a chest mount, and then for the motors, we have a connection that you wire through one way or the other to get it up to a shoulder mount, so that after you put your helmet on, you can clip this into your helmet. What that does is when we're riding around, when we look at different places, it follows where we're looking, so it can see if we see a violation or we see something going on. It captures, where we're looking, and so that's why I have all of this going on.
And there's so many apparatus on the bike too, right?
Yes.
LiDAR, radar.
Yeah,
lights.
so it looks like they have a bunch of guns, right? And then there's a radar gun, there's LiDAR, which is laser gun, so it's very specific. They have moving radar, both front and back. They have the sirens, they have lights. It's pretty incredible what we put on those bikes.
You talked earlier about the maneuverability. Now, I remember when my dad was a boater, my first dad, there was still riding competitions, and he loved to compete. Talk a little bit about the Southwest motorcycle training and competition.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes. So we have that coming up in April, and we're actually hosting here. It's going to be at South Mountain, which is going to be a really cool backdrop for that. I'm excited because what that does is showcase our riders, number one, but also riders from all over the nation. What I didn't know until I got here was that we probably have some of the top 5 riders in the entire nation in our unit, and so. These guys can do things with motorcycles one-handed that I would be scared to do with 2 hands and bumpers on both sides. So,
awesome.
We're really looking forward to hosting that. We're really looking forward to all the partnerships that we're going to have for that. So
cool. That'll be great. We'll try and catch that on social media too and share that with everybody. I want to thank Lieutenant Chad Ryan from the Traffic Bureau. Thank my co-host Rob. Thank the crew for producing. Thank you, the viewers and listeners. And I want to remind everybody that you too can help solve crime in your community by sending tips to Silent Witness. Visit silentwitness.org and call 480-WITNESS. Catch the video versions of these shows, the 50 info, on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/PHXPD. Follow us on all social media platforms. And remember, we're hiring. Go to joinphxpd.com. We're all in this together.